What would you do if you were always bullied at school? What would you do if you were abandoned by your family? What would you do if you found a door connected to another world, and all items and skills acquired there can be taken back with you? One day while walking home, a young boy finds a girl surrounded by delinquents who is being threatened to comply with them. The boy nervously calls out to them to interfere, and for his efforts, they mock him and proceed to beat his body. As usual, the authorities arrive late and the ones responsible get away, but at least the girl appreciates him. The boy, however, rejects her support and walks away. He was taught by his grandfather since young to have courage and step up to help when others are facing trouble. His name is Tenjo Yuya, and we learned that he was always bullied since young, and even his family treated him like an outcast because he was so ugly in comparison to his siblings. This harassment only increased with age, with him frequently getting beaten. In this dark hole, it was his grandfather that was his light. He was the only one that showed him love and affection, frequently telling him that by showing kindness to others, happiness will someday return to him. It was these words that carried him to confront the men earlier, despite feeling fear, but he feels very empty inside. His grandfather passed away, leaving everything he owns to Yuya in his will. His parents tried to take it away, but upon their failure the family completely abandoned him in exchange. To get by, he has to work part-time every day. It's his middle school graduation ceremony, but there is nothing worth celebrating as people scorned him to the end. Yuya gets caught while trying to escape his bullies, and they tell him nothing is going to change as they proceed to beat him up while his siblings watch with amusement from afar. He arrives late to his job as a result, and gets fired for not showing up in time. He comes home to a cheap meal, and as he reflects that his life isn't worth living, he punches the mirror in frustration. Yuya further vents on the wall, but he unknowingly stumbles into a hidden room where a bunch of strange objects are stored. He is convinced it's all souvenirs from his grandfather's travels, but he then sees a strange door. It leads to another room, and upon stepping inside, an interface appears, alarming him. As he reads it, he learns that he has literally entered another world. The interface informs him of the different titles and skills he has now acquired, such as the ability to control the door's location and its accessibility to others. He likens it to a game, and curiously asks to view his status, but he is met with disappointment when he sees his pitiful stats. Yuya then looks outside, and finally accepts that he's really in another world. There's a note left on the table, but it's an unknown language that he can't read. However, his interface offers a skill to learn all languages, so he quickly comes to know that the owner of the house is nearing death, so he left the house and its contents to whoever finds it. The house is protected by magic as well, and no one other than the owner can enter. This was all left by someone called the Sage, but I have a sneaking suspicion of who this was. Next, he curiously examines the pile of weapons, and pulls out a black blade for a closer look. His appraisal skill informs him its top-tier effects, and he realizes how dangerous it is. He finally steps outside, and learns the boundary of the home is up to its fence, so he excitedly tries to swing the sword but falls over. Like a cheat, he immediately learns a basic sword skill. Concluding that this has to do with him being an otherworlder, he goes out of his way to try out the variety of weapons, showcasing their very broken mechanics, and gaining corresponding skills. However, his status doesn't show a change in his overall stats. While he was putting the weapons away using his storage skill, a monster suddenly comes crashing into the property. He was frantic, but he slowly remembers that the house is protected by a barrier. The monster thrashes against the barrier, and Yuya notices that it's a level 300 bloody ogre. It pulls out a tree to use as a weapon, but the barrier won't budge. Recalling the description of the weapon he's holding, Yuya considers fighting and he manages to throw the spear, easily piercing through the ogre and killing it. Its body disappears, and what's left are various items the monster dropped. In addition, from defeating the level 300 ogre as a level 1, his level increases to a staggering level 100. Yuya distributes his ability points and calls it a day, but as he's about to exit, the interface gives him an option to convert the monster drops into cash. He's flabbergasted, but he doesn't refuse. Deep into the night, while he's sleeping, Yuya's body undergoes a sudden mutation. When he wakes up, he feels something about him is different, and his clothes don't fit him anymore, but since he broke his mirror in his earlier rage, he is unable to see what happened. Regardless, he should have seen and felt his abs, so how does he not conclude that his physique has changed? Since he doesn't have any fitting clothes, he took some from the sage as the clothes magically adjusts to the user. He takes the time to explore the garden area of the home and tries his hand at gardening. He is quickly adjusting to the happenings there, as he now calmly handles the situation. It somehow leaves behind some coffee-flavored jelly among its drops, in addition to a rare necklace that boosts the user's stats and passively regenerates magic. With this, Yuya is now level 150. Then he continues about his day, collecting various ingredients from the gardens and tries his hand at cooking and making a delicious meal. He didn't forget about the coffee jelly either. It looked a bit intimidating, but apparently it was quite tasty. Using some of the cash that was exchanged, Yuya decided to get his body measured to tailor a new school uniform for himself as well. He would train and also spend some time in the library to learn more about martial arts. But all this is really him distracting himself from the thought of going back to school. One day while walking around the yard, an elite goblin attacks him, but he is now very agile and smoothly uses his abilities to kill it off. It is now the start of school, and walking out in public, he draws the attention of everyone around him. When he sits down in his seat, he gets surrounded by his bullies, but they don't recognize him, assuming him to be a new transfer student. When he nervously reveals himself to be the same Tenjo Yuya whom they always harassed, everyone shouts out in disbelief. No one believes his words, so he rushes to the bathroom to check his appearance for the first time, and he also cannot believe his change. How he didn't bother to check himself out even after all the obvious physique changes and agile movements he's learned to do is baffling. Afterwards, he is confronted by his siblings, who demanded to know what he did that caused such a drastic change, all the while calling him useless. But they are interrupted by a limo that stops by, and the girl he once saved comes out and greets Yuya.